Hello, hello, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on Rock and Roll Podcast, we have the home team, and they have a new album called Slow Bloom, which is released on October 22nd via Revival Recordings. Right now I'm being joined by Brian and John to share some more information about this stellar release, some guitar stuff, their production team. So boys, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew I had to have you on because I was watching one of your music videos and it showed a great deal of sense of humor.
Word. Yep. That I can imagine which video that might have been.
Where you're sitting there watching, I'm guessing auditioning bands or something, and yeah. Take us through that music video.
Dude, okay, so we had the idea for that probably back when we were recording the album, like we were mid-recording, and we had the idea for the video before we knew what song it was going to be for. But the base idea was just other bands like that we're friends with playing as us. And we thought we were just like, there's so much we can do with that. There's so many funny things we can do. And the initial idea was that we were going to have two bands, both of whom were our friends, which is exactly what ended up happening. We had Avoid as the first band, and then we had a band called Scythe Gang 666 as the second band, and two very dear friends of ours. And the third band was meant to be like hotter, buff versions of us. And so the whole point of the video is that we have these two bands that perform so well, like they're fucking, we picked them because they're killer performers. Like Avoid and Scythe Gang they're all killer performers. We love what they do. We love their music. But the crew, the camera crew and the director are not having it. They're like, this isn't really what we're looking for. Yeah. And it's not until it was a group of mostly non-musicians. Well, actually, I think only half of them were non-musicians, but the idea was that they were rigid and they didn't perform quite as well, but they were just there looking hot.
Because let's be honest, I mean, how many times have you seen like a new artist come out and it's like all style and zero substance?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It happens all the time. So I'm like, that's like what a lot of these industry folks, I feel like what they look for. So
yeah, so it's a bit of a snarky remark against the I guess the Hollywood-esque
mainstream almost.
Yeah, way of going about judging an artist, and the fact that, you know, we have definitely tried to put art first always, as pretentious as that sounds, but sometimes it comes and bites us in the ass. Like there are plenty of artists out there who are good, but really they got where they are because they just fit the mold that they needed to fit, which we have mixed feelings about this whole thing, but it was a bit of a sarcastic nod to that. And the fact that once the hot guys came in who weren't really performing much at all, we were just like, yeah, this is exactly what we wanted.
This is what we need.
We just need hot versions of us. So that is the whole long-winded plot of that video.
You probably could have gone on even longer. I mean, it's fantastic. It's filmed brilliantly. I get exactly what's going on. It's cool to hear the backside story of it. Mm-hmm. And I think what's also interesting is that it fits this song so well, because you mentioned you guys had this concept before the song was even tied to it.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how did you guys tie it to the song?
Well, so the planning period for the video came after we decided it was going to be for the song. Okay. It was just the initial concept that we were like, we don't know which one this is going to be applied to yet. But it definitely, when we were sitting down and planning it, we planned out the cues. We planned out where things were going to happen. Like, obviously, like when I get up and I get mad, and it's right in that little segment where it's just me singing.
You just broke the clipboard as I'm watching it right now. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I have to go on record saying I did score that clipboard beforehand. I am not strong enough to just first try. Just. That said, the shot turned out perfect, so that's all I really wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there were cues like that where I was like, okay, you know, first verse is going to be setting the scene. Second verse is going to be Avoid performing as us, or I'm sorry, chorus. Second verse is going to be like me, just this sucks. We're in trouble. Second chorus, obviously, Scythe Gang rolls in and they do their thing, and I love the fact that we got them because we were originally going to have a different band. They were the backup. And I ended up realizing that they were the best choice for it, for sure, because they elevated the video to another level of like ridiculousness, basically. That's their whole vibe. Like they are that. What you saw,
that's them.
That's them.
And the thing that's even funnier to me is that like they just dress like that everywhere they go. We've known them for years, and they've always dressed like that. And like they just got into a band together. It's like, wow, this is actually perfect. This is actually works out great for them.
Likes attract likes or whatever, you're looking real, recognize real, and you're looking familiar. That whole thing, yeah.
Oh yeah.
As you're mentioning, as I'm rewatching the video, I remember now. Initially, I was thinking that this was, I don't know. I immediately thought of the metalcore meme, where different kinds of metal and the kinds of people that listen to it, and it gets to metalcore, and it's always this like sweaty bro who's like really buff and.
Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Yep,
love it.
Okay, very cool stuff. And the other cool thing too, as I'm listening to the song and I'm remembering, is that it builds up. So it almost, the concept of the video and the song, they tie together so well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I actually both directed and edited that video.
Really? So
and we did use my camera, but I had somebody. I obviously had to have somebody else shoot it. It was a buddy of mine here that I work with a lot, and he's really good at lighting and stuff like that. So I definitely can't take credit for that part. He was the one who kind of planned out the lighting scheme of the set. But other than that, though, I edited the whole thing myself.
Wow. Okay. There you go. Star moment for you, baby. Now. Was that difficult directing it and sitting in the director's seat and being like, was that difficult?
You saw it from an outside perspective. It was, I wouldn't say difficult, but
no, it's just time. It's just a lot of time.
Yeah,
you gotta act in it and like, look, check back the footage. Let's do it again. I didn't like this part of the footage. And, so I just say I wouldn't say it was challenging, more just a lot more time, I think.
So that clipboard that I was holding, that was literally the schedule for the day. I was crossing stuff off as we were going.
And you broke it, yeah.
Yeah. That was both a prop and the actual shot list. Okay. I had everything planned out front to back, and I'm really happy we did because we got out of there 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
Like, we barely made it, and the guy was like, we left him a bunch of Topo Chico because Dan works for Topo Chico and he brought a bunch. We left him a bunch in the fridge. And so I messaged him and I was like, hey, so sorry we're a little late. He's like, all good. I'll take the Topo Chico as payment for the last 10 minutes. Okay. It's like, perfect.
I'm looking up Topo Chico. I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's a sparkling water brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agua Mineral. Fantastic. Bottled in Monterrey, Mexico. Very cool.
It is delicious. We have plenty of it here.
Okay. Cool stuff. And then, looks like we have a fan of the band. Kirsten Hell says howdy.
Oh, my God. What's up, Kirsten?
Of course.
Beautiful. So you guys know Kirsten. That is fantastic. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. She's in our Patreon.
Sweet.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in. Much appreciated. Since she's on the Patreon, any special questions, just let me know, Kirsten, if there's something you want to know from the band that I guess is reasonably appropriate. And you wanted to chat about guitar stuff. The minute you came on, you're like, guitar stuff, ask me questions. So take us through what I'm hearing in this album. What are we listening to? What kind of guitars? What kind of pickups? What kind of strings? What kind of guitar picks?
It's a lot. So I could take you through all the nitty gritty here. So we used, I use a guitar brand called Aristides guitars. And if you're not familiar with the Aristides guitars, they're a brand from the Netherlands, and their whole thing is that they build high-end custom guitars, but it's not made of wood. It's made of a synthetic material called Arium. And the fretboard is made of Richlite, so there's actually no wood in the guitars themselves. So what that means, at least for me, is that when I tour with it, we just did a tour, no issues at all going through extreme heat, cold. Like, the guitar was not affected, because with traditional guitars with wood, you go through these extreme climates. The warps, exactly. So our bass player had to set up his bass because it was, a wood instrument, which is, it's typical. It's what everyone's using. But, mine were bass, perfect.
Totally good
tune
the entire time. And they sound phenomenal, and they play so well.
Yeah, they're basically like, really nice. Like, think like higher end Jackson custom shop neck. It's a compound radius. So as you go up the neck, it gets thinner. So it feels great to play and sounds amazing. And so what you're hearing on the record is mostly Aristides guitars. There is a Gibson Les Paul Custom that I no longer have. I sold that actually for another Aristides. And then
did we use a Strat? No, we didn't use a Strat.
No, we used an
SSS.
Aristides. Yeah, we have an Aristides which had like a single, 3 different single coils for the clean tones.
That one is phenomenal. That one's one of my favorites.
Kind of what gives the album an extra dimension and depth of like heaviness that a lot of people may not understand or realize is that we actually used 8-string on like almost every chorus on the record has 8-string guitar in some capacity. So it has this really low frequency that kind of really cuts through and punches, every time the chorus is hit.
And that was an Aristides 8-string as well.
Yeah, Aristides 8-string. And it sounds incredible.
Love that sound. That was the guitars, but for amps.
We used a couple of different ones. I think the 8-string was all on the Bogner Shiva 20th anniversary, which this is my tech geek dorky.
Go, do it. Let it out. Be free.
And so the types of tubes, man, but the KT88s feel a little bit more open and sound great.
Right, they're the underdog. Everyone's all about EL34s versus 606s, baby. Let's talk about them KT88s.
What the hell is happening?
So the reason I got turned on to them too initially was because Kerry King's JCM 800 has KT88 tubes in them.
The mid-range just sits right where it needs to sit, doesn't it?
It sounds so good. It's like on my list of like, if I could have another amp, there's always a million amps I want, but if I could have a JCM 800, like if it's not from the 80s, the next one I would want is a Kerry King signature one. Those sound killer.
Cool.
And then we also used, funny enough,
main tone.
This is I'm telling you right now, go to Reverb and pick up a PVJSX head. It's the Joe Satriani head.
Mm-hmm. Now, it is not expensive.
It's not. They are so cheap right now, and it sounds
amazing.
Good. It sounds so good.
We did a shootout of like every amp that was available at Aaron's.
Amps there, and that was the one that's like that. Just sounds great. It's really pleasant.
We were almost in disbelief.
Right around, what is it, 2003 to 2005, they started coming out with the Triple X, the Double XL, and the JSX, and they were killer amps that were used incredibly, but then somehow they just got obliterated by the 6505.
I have a theory. My theory is that when you look at the PVJSX, I don't know who on their design, maybe this is Joe Satriani's thing, maybe this is a design team thing. That guitar head looks like a new metal aesthetic guitar head.
Mm-hmm. Kind of looks like shit.
It kind of does not look. I mean, I'm not saying like shit, but like it's got a new metal aesthetic, and like that aesthetic at that time period,
they were competing with Krank. Remember Krank?
Oh, funny you say that. Also a Krank on the record.
We also use
nobody uses Krank. Well,
nobody uses Cranks, but the Revolution, the first edition of it, man, it got some balls to it.
You have to dial it in properly
because it has this weird sweep knob, and the sweep knob kind of changes how the EQ works. So you have to dial the EQ according to where the sweep is. So it's a really weird guitar head, but man, that thing can sound really great, and we got that on the record too.
Yep.
I feel like I'm missing one more.
I feel like we are. Did we use a block letter at all? I know Aaron has one there.
We probably have 5150.
Okay. Yeah, probably just a 5150. We layered a variety of tones. Oh, what did we use for the clean tones?
It's a Fender Bandmaster.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a head, I guess, that Foo Fighters used a lot in their career early on, and sounds killer. I actually just picked up a Vox AC30 that I haven't really had much opportunity to really play.
That might be on the next one.
Yeah, that'll probably be on the next one.
AC30 sound really good.
They sound great.
Yeah, and if you have a studio that you can grind that thing into the hole, where you crank the hell out of it, and then boost it as well with at least 2 or 3 metal zones, because you can never have enough.
I'm very partial to the HM2.
Okay. There you go. HM2 neck pickup. It'll be nasty.
It'll be the nastiest tone you ever heard.
That's so sick.
Kirsten's actually has a question.
What's up, Kirsty?
how did they get those features on Danger?
How did I get the features on Danger? So, two things. Number one, Lucas Magyar from Veil of Maya is in the second chorus. He does a couple of like supplementing vocals that really help lift that chorus up. And we actually met him playing with his other band in Minneapolis in 2019. We played a show with him and his other band.
What's the band called again?
The Airway.
The Airway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we just got to talking to him, and we went out for beers afterwards, and it was really great. And I just kept in contact with him over the years, and after a few times of texting, I realized where I kind of wanted him. I was like, I think he'd be really good in Danger. So I hit him up, and he was like, let's do it.
And Jeff Loomis. Now that one, I remember we wrote the song. I was like, man, I'd love to have a killer guest solo. And the guy, Aaron Smith, who engineered the whole thing, he actually primarily is known for heavy metal production. So if you haven't heard his band Seven Horns, Seven Eyes, if you're like a big production nerd, guitar tone dork,
that sounds
check
really
that
good.
record out.
And the new stuff will sound even better when it finally comes out.
It's insane. It's like it's so good on the ears. But he also recorded Jeff Loomis, his solo stuff. And basically we just asked Aaron, like, hey, could you ask Jeff Loomis if he'll do a guest solo? And he said, yeah. I was like, holy shit, like, unbelievable. Nevermore arch enemy guitar player, like, shredding on our song. Like, that's what a dream.
So we were anticipating him to kind of like phone it in.
No.
He did not phone it in.
He literally was like, hey, man, I've been working on this solo for 10 hours and my fingers are bleeding, but I'm almost there. And
we were like,
you literally could have done whatever in 5 minutes and sent it to us, and I would have been thrilled.
Pretty stoked with
it. He just went.
Sweet.
Yeah. He just crushed it and like knocked it out of the park.
Made a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, it's killer.
Yeah.
It took Kristen a while to figure out who Jeff Loomis was.
Oh, yeah.
If you listen to Nevermore or New Arch Enemy, he is the guy there. So
yeah. Very.
Also, funny enough, speaking of Jeff Loomis, you asked about picks. I actually use Sharp picks because Jeff Loomis uses Sharp picks.
I also love the Sharps myself.
Mm-hmm. Where is it? There it is. I found it. So I've been using these bad boys, the Jazz.
The Jazz 3.
Jazz 3s.
Oh, everybody and their mom, I feel like used them at one point.
Mm-hmm. And I remember somebody saying to me,
you mean this guy?
You mean that guy? Because obviously this is the classic.
That's the Sharp.
This is the Sharp.
That's the Sharp one, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the tiny guy, right? The little Jazz 3s?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Jazz 3s, yeah. And they're like a 1.14, but because they're smaller, they hit differently.
Yep.
And I find it's easier to play, easier to maneuver. And I found out, just by doing a little bit of research, that a lot of guys, from John Petrucci to, like, for example, Loomis, are all using these sharper point picks.
Dude,
and
they're better.
Yeah.
They just sound better.
It gives you this certain like percussive element, I feel like, and like it's much more sharp, and like the attack, I feel like it is a lot better. And that's sort of the stuff you're kind of looking for. Obviously, maybe you wouldn't want to use it like on acoustic or whatever, but like I think for the way that I play, like I think it works great.
Yeah. As an Arch Enemy fan, I am embarrassed. It's okay. And Kirsten, I actually have an interview live on the YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/c/the Rock and Roll Podcast, and I can put it up in the chat for you. I can find the link for it and put it up in the chat for you. I sat down with Charlie in 2019 backstage.
Oh, cool. That's dope.
That's super cool.
So I can find that for you, Kirsten, as I'm also multitasking and finishing up this beautiful interview that we are having. So with about 1 minute left, we talked about Topo Chico. We said we were going to talk about Chris Crummett, but then we got carried away with Aristides guitars, Krank Amps, and KT88 tubes. Sweet. So yeah, let me get that link for you, Kirsten. So while I'm getting that link for her, my big, huge, throbbing question is Slow Bloom. What is this album about? What did you guys set out to create?
Dude, so about 3 years ago, we released our first album called Better Off. And that one was very much so a collection of songs from a bunch of different people that were a part of writing it. This one was a lot more cohesive. This one was a lot more like us sitting down with each other and really hashing out like what sound we wanted to capture. And the reason it's called Slow Bloom is because it took us a long time to get to this sound, but this sound is much more representative of what we are like as musicians and what we listen to. We like pop punk, but the original style of pop punk that was on Better Off was never really what I think we were setting out as musicians to make. I think it's just what naturally happened on that one. This time, we have a sound that we are not only much more proud of, but we also think is a lot more original. And it's as I said, it's much more representative of us and who we are as musicians. And that's what it's all about. It's about doing what you want, despite what other people might think.
And also just the amount, like the whole idea of like slow bloom is like, I think not that maybe we are fully bloomed yet, but it took us a long time to get to this point. And it's okay that it took us a long time. Sometimes it'll take you a long time to figure out what you want to do with your life, what you want to do, just in whatever craft you're doing. It might take time. And as long as you stick with it and you really are dedicated to doing it, you will figure it out and things will, to quote the great Jeff Goldblum, life finds a way.
I just immediately thought of Jurassic Park. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and speaking of Jeff Loomis, there was a point in time, because I absolutely loved his guitar tone in Nevermore, and especially the way it developed over time, and I was always curious, what is that sound? I remember reading some interviews with him, and one of the key things he said was that in all the years that he's been playing, he's always been searching for that right combination between him and the wind from the speaker cabinet, and it's taken years to really figure out what that is, and his most recent one is obviously his Jackson guitar setup, with the blackout pickups, going into an Ingle of some kind. And he said that switching over to Ingle was really huge for him. And I mean, the guy's been in the industry for a very long time. So even being in the outfit and having great guitar tone, he's still searching,
Yeah. It always happens. I feel like I'm the same. I think anyone who is like really into guitar and gear, I feel like that, one year they're on this and then they're like, you know what, maybe there's something different out there, something better. And then like you try that. And then like for me, example, I started off with Mesa cabs. I went to Orange and now I'm back at Mesa because I was like, man, I really miss those vintage 30. Like there's something really nice about that mid range and that air push that you get out of, Mesas. And not to say that Orange aren't great as well. I think it's a different sound.
Yeah,
and I think I'm much happier where I'm at right now currently. But that could change.
Yeah.
But as of now, it sounds great.
The V30s coming out of a Marshall cabinet also resonate differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So one of my latest ones is a rectifier going through a Marshall cabinet.
Word.
That's dope. I want to get a Rev F, Revision F Mesa dual rec at some point, but there's so much stuff.
I know. Right now you're figuring out that mid scoop on Krank.
I know. You got to get the scoop.
Got to get that right.
Got to get the scoop right, baby. All right. So the home team, we have a new album called Slow Bloom, which was released on October 22nd via Revival Recordings. We chatted about Topo Chico, Aristides guitars, Krank Amps, KT88 tubes, Jeff Loomis. We also talked about the music video for Slow Bloom, which when this episode airs on YouTube, we will have that in the show notes. You can also head over to YouTube, type in Slow Bloom, and you can check it out, as well as watching all your friends get rich. There's a link tree for the boys, which I absolutely love. So boys, thank you so much for coming on to the Rock and Roll Podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Seriously.